Welcome to my channel. I'm Scott, and in this video, I am going to walk you through the process of valuing Marvell stock by analyzing their financial statements and dissecting their financial ratios so we can determine if it's a buy or a sell. Marvell designs and sells semiconductor chips, but outsources the manufacturing, so they're a fabless company. It has 10,000 patents. It works with some of the world's largest companies such as Amazon, Samsung, Google, Cisco, Microsoft, and many more. Its four segments are mobile carriers, automotive, enterprise, and data centers. The company is helping move forward 5G technology. Its chips speed up the process of finding and collecting data. It helps use less power to enable better performance. It reduces delays so your phone or computer will always work at peak performance. For automotive, its semiconductors identify possible collisions, and they support and advance many features on autonomous cars. It works closely with leading auto manufacturers to make driving cars safer. Its enterprise division helps organizations manage their data faster with high-performance bandwidth and advanced security features. Data centers are in need of high performance with increasing customers and applications. Marvell's products improve data infrastructure to optimize and scale securely and efficiently. It plans to acquire networking chip startup Innovium for $1.1 billion. This will help the company expand its sales in the cloud and for data centers. It acquired Inphi and paid each Inphi shareholder $66 plus 2.3 common shares of Marvell. This was equivalent to $10 billion. Inphi has a strong and growing position in mobile carriers and data centers. In 2012, a Pittsburgh jury ruled that Marvell had infringed 2 patents by incorporating hard disk technology developed and owned by Carnegie Mellon University without a license. The jury awarded damages of $1.17 billion, the third largest ever in a patent case at the time. The jury also found that the breach had been willful, giving the judge discretion to award up to 3 times the original damage amount. The company is headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware, and was founded in 1995. It started trading in 2000 and can be found on the Nasdaq, Mexican Bolsa, and Deutsche Börse. Let's get started with the model. This is a large cap company, 51 billion market cap. They're trading at $62 a share, and they have 820 million shares outstanding. Let's look at the financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future, and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video, and free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. So you can see the company has pretty consistent free cash flow each year, around $500 million on average. Net income is the profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. And that doesn't look so hot. It is positive in 2020, negative in the other years. Revenue is the sales for the company, and that peaked in the trailing 12 months at $3.5 billion. This is the company's income statement. The top line is the revenue of the sales. Here's a breakdown of their 2021 revenue from their 10K. 43% is from China, 11% from the US. So it seems like the company really focuses on the Asian countries. 5 of the 6 countries listed are in Asia. I know China is a really big market for a lot of companies because there's so many people, and EVs are more prominent there than the US or most countries. Because of all the pollution in the air, they're trying to get rid of combustion engines and replace them with EVs. Below revenue is the cost of revenue. A big cost of revenue for this company is the cost of inventory that goes into making their products. Revenue minus cost of revenue gives you your gross profit, and that peaked in the trailing 12 months at $1.6 billion. Then below that is operating expenses. Selling, general, and administrative expenses were about $690 million. That's mostly from payroll. And then research and development is a big expense for this company, $1.2 billion. So they do have negative operating income each year, except in 2019. So that's usually not a good sign to have negative operating income. They paid $105 million of interest on their debt. They do have quite a bit of debt on their balance sheet. And the bottom line of the income statement is their net income, which is negative every year except in 2020. It's positive $1.6 billion. This $1.1 billion gain in other income and expenses, this is from when the company divested part of their business. They sold off their Wi-Fi connectivity business to NXP for $1.7 billion in proceeds, and they had to book a $1.1 billion gain onto the income statement. A divestiture is when you sell part of your business to maximize the value of the parent company. So a spin-off is an example of a divestiture, or selling a subsidiary of your business to another company, or just selling another segment of your business to another company. I would usually ignore these items on the income statement because they're not recurring items. And this company's business model is not to sell off pieces of its business. It's to make semiconductor chips. I would focus on operating income when I look at the income statement. And that's also deceiving for this company because they have acquired companies in the past and they've been passing through a lot of amortization and restructuring costs onto the income statement. And those are non-cash items. But the cash occurred years ago when they acquired the companies, and now they're passing through non-cash losses onto the income statement and bringing down their net income. This is the company's statement of cash flows. The top line is operating cash flow. That's how much cash the company generates from its operational business. You could think of operating cash flow as net income converted to cash, because net income is your accounting profit or loss. It's not actual cash. Here's a breakdown of their 2021 operating cash flow. So you can see they reported a $277 million loss in 2021. But the way you calculate operating cash flow is you have to add back the non-cash items on the income statement. Depreciation and amortization are a common non-cash item for a company. That was $198 million. That brought down their net income, but it doesn't affect cash flow, so you have to add it back on a statement of cash flows. But the big thing that stood out was this $440 million of amortization of acquired intangible assets. So when they acquired these companies in the past, those companies had intangible assets on their balance sheet, and now they're writing down those intangible assets. So when you analyze a company or invest in a company, these types of things you have to ignore because they're really not part of their business, writing down intangible assets. It kind of really skews the numbers and makes things really confusing. I would focus on operating cash flow when I look at a company. That's a better indicator of how the company's doing than net income. But we did look at videos on this channel where operating cash flow was more deceiving than net income. I know that makes your job really confusing, but the more you look at these things, the easier it gets. If a company has a lot of changes in working capital, which this company doesn't, but if a company does have tons of changes, like changes in inventory, accounts receivables, accounts payable, that can make operating cash flow a bit skewed. So they do generate a good amount of operating cash flow each year, so the company does seem to be pretty healthy. And they do outsource most of their manufacturing, but they still do some manufacturing in-house. So they spend about $100 million on average each year in CapEx. CapEx are investments in property, plant, and equipment. If you buy a factory to make products or you buy machinery to make products, that goes into CapEx. Operating cash flow minus CapEx gives you your free cash flow. And they do have excess free cash flow each year. If a company did have negative free cash flow, that means all the revenue is absorbed into expenses, which is fine for startups, but for a company that's been around for a long time, that's generally not a good sign. So they do buy back stock. They bought back $100 million in 2019 and $364 million in 2020. When a company buys back stock, that decreases the shares outstanding, making your shares more valuable. They've done a couple of big acquisitions recently, so they added a lot of debt. They added over $3 billion of debt in the trailing 12 months. They also added over $1 billion in 2019. The equity section gives you a good idea of how the company has been doing historically. They have $15 billion of equity. They raised $13 billion from issuing stock, and they profited $1.7 billion, and this is after paying dividends. So that looks pretty good. Let's look at the capital structure. They have $15 billion of equity, $5 billion of debt. They're 75% equity, 25% debt. And their weighted average cost of capital is 7.8%, and that's a discount rate we're going to apply to the future cash flows. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated a terminal value, which is all cash flows past year 4, that's $35 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $30 billion. We divide that by 820 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price of $37. They're trading at $62, so they're trading at a 69% premium. It's a sell according to the model. The analyst forecast is for their revenue to grow 17.7%. So I grew their revenue 17.7% each year. The company converts 17% of their revenue into free cash flow. The way I figured that out is I just summed the free cash flow numbers up here, these 4 numbers, took that sum, divided by the sum of these 4 revenue numbers, and that's 17%. So I converted 17% of their revenue each year into free cash flow. These numbers do look a lot bigger than their previous numbers, but they made 2 big acquisitions, so they should have a lot higher revenue and free cash flow than they did in the past. But I'm still coming out with a stock price a lot lower than they're trading at. So obviously the market feels this company has greater growth in the future than they did in the past. The market is forward thinking. Simply Wall Street is even lower than me. They're at $31 a share. They're saying the stock is 100% overvalued. 24 analysts priced this stock and the average price target was $70. Pricing a stock is a lot different than valuing a stock. When you price a stock, you're just saying what you think the market will pay. When you value a stock, you're saying how much the asset is worth. Sometimes people pay a lot more or a lot less than an asset is worth. This is where the stock has been trading since 2000, so you can see it was pretty flat, up and down a little, for about 19-20 years. But then the past year and a half, it's really shot up. Pretty much every semiconductor stock has done really well the past year. Investors are pricing in the future because all these companies are going to be in such huge demand. Most investors are expecting these companies to have huge profits. The stock is up about 50-60% in the past year. It looks like it was trading at about $40 12 months ago, and it's just pretty much been going up little by little. It did take some dips, but overall it's been going up. They've been paying a 6-cent dividend for a while, and their dividend is only 39 basis points. So I'm pretty confident they're going to raise their dividend pretty soon, because their dividend payment is only 39% of their free cash flow, so they definitely have cash left to increase that dividend payment. And their industry pays a 1.2% dividend. They're a lot lower than their industry. Analysts are forecasting them to grow their dividend to 0.5%. Their beta is pretty close to 1, so the stock moves with the market. The stock is up 58% in the past 52 weeks, much better than S&P 500, up 29%. The 52-week low is 35, the high is 64, and the stock is trading above its 50-day and 200-day moving average. About 7 million shares are traded each day on this stock. Of the 819.5 million shares outstanding, 819.1 million are on float. The big institutions really like this stock. They own 88% of the company, and 2.3% of the shares on float are shorted. Semiconductor companies have done really well the past year, 3 years, and 5 years. But this company has done better than its industry, and its industry has done much better than the market in the past year, 3 years, and 5 years. So this company is performing really well. Analysts are really bullish on this stock, projecting their earnings to grow 132% and their revenue to grow 18%. If you invested $10,000 into this company 10 years ago, you probably would have sold after a few years because the stock did nothing. But if you held on, you'd be at $53,500 today. That's an 18% annual return. Fidelity is the biggest shareholder at 14%, then Vanguard, BlackRock, T. Rowe Price, and Wellington. Let's look at their financial ratios. We can't look at their PE because they have negative net income. Their price to sales is a bit high at 15, so they're not bringing in that much revenue relative to their market cap. They do have a good price to book at 3.4. Price to book is stock price over book value per share, and the way you calculate book value per share, it's equity over shares outstanding. Equity is assets minus liabilities on the balance sheet, and they have $15 billion of equity, negative $2.8 billion of tangible equity, since they have $18 billion of intangible assets on their balance sheet. A company gets intangible assets when they acquire another company. They have a pretty good current ratio at 1.8, a good quick ratio at 1.3. They have $600 million of cash on their balance sheet, $800 million of receivables, and $500 million of inventory. So they do seem to be well capitalized. They had $500 million of free cash flow in the trailing 12 months, and that should be going up a lot more with all the acquisitions. They have over $800 million of working capital. Working capital is current assets minus current liabilities, and they pay out about $200 million in dividend payments. So they have over $1.1 billion of funding. The best way to look at ratios to compare them to companies in the same industry, I've done videos of 13 other semiconductor companies, and if Marvell has a number in red, they're worse than the average. If they have a number in blue, they're better than the average. So we can't look at their PE because it's negative. Their price of sales is a lot worse than average. But look at NVIDIA. They have $500 billion market cap, a huge company, and they have a terrible PE and a terrible price of sales. It just shows you how much people are bidding up semiconductor stocks. So if you're making money, there's nothing wrong with that. It's great to see your stock climbing and climbing. There is some risk your stock may come down if the company's financials aren't as good as the market thinks they will be. But for now, just keep riding the wave. They have a good price to book, a good current ratio, a negative ROE since they have negative net income. They're lower in debt than the average company, and they're a big company, $51 billion, but a lot lower than the average. And they pay a really tiny dividend, definitely lower than the average in the industry. So to summarize, I have them trading at a 69% premium, but there's really no signs of this stock price coming down. Investors are really bullish on this company and this industry. In the short term, you can never predict a stock price. In the long term, the fundamentals will dictate, but in the short term, nobody really knows. And the fact that this company is making some key acquisitions, I think investors really like that. And as long as these acquisitions prove to be successful, the stock will continue climbing. If they have difficulty integrating these companies into theirs, That could have a negative impact on the stock price, but only time will tell. I rank their free cash flow 6 out of 10, their revenue 8 out of 10, and their ratios 5 out of 10. So let me know what you think. Give this video a like, subscribe, or comment below. Also, if you'd like to get a custom valuation or just support the channel, you can become a member by clicking on the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.